pleasures and booze. And here are your hosts, Greg Washington and Doug Ziegler.
And Renee.
Hey, every day.
What's going on? Before we start, Doug, you have something to tell. You have something to say.
Yes, we are having a guest tonight who is a sex and relationship educator and coach. So just a forewarning, if you have any little ones around, might not be a great idea because there will be sexual discussions and sexual content to discuss. So just there's your little disclaimer.
Or it might be a good idea depending on their age.
True.
What are you having, Doug?
Well, I'm starting with a dry porter from the North Brewery called Frank's Coffee Truck, 7.1% porter. I split this with Joe because I can't drink the whole thing. So,
what do you mean by a dry porter? Is that what they?
That's what they described it as. But it has like almost like a toffee note to it. It smells sweet almost, which is dry porter. You expect a dry, roasty scent. But yeah, we'll see how this is. So,
I heard of a dry porter, or not never, but
I imagine dry porters being more like kind of the British style porter, but this isn't. It finishes dry, but it's definitely have a little sweetness to it and a little coffee flavor too. So this is called Frank Coffee Truck. Maybe it's a coffee porter as well. They just described it as a dry porter instead, but really, really, really good, really tasty, really roasty.
I gotta find some of that. Sounds great.
How you been? How you been, Renee? It's been a long time since we saw you.
I've been busy, which is probably why it's been a long time.
Yeah.
Right. You already know. Because we love to have you. We love to have you. Of course, you already know. What's in a glass?
I am drinking. This is my first time trying it, and I actually tried it mixed first, which I know is a no-no. But I am drinking Lost Horse whiskey. Let me get it facing the right way. And I got this at my local bottle shop, which I think I've told you guys about before when I was drinking a bottle of wine. This is actually a local brew or blend right here in Joshua Tree, and it's named after a famous mine in the national park, and it's pretty good. I'm drinking it with some Gosling's ginger beer because that's my favorite go-to when I don't know what to do with whiskey. Is I just throw some ginger beer in there and call it good. So
Nice,
excellent. And Doug, I have Irruption. Irruption Pale Ale. It's a nice hoppy style pale ale. Not too big though, Doug. You might enjoy it. I'm not sure, but it looks like it's a collaboration between Vintage Brewing Company here and Forward Madison, which is our pro minor league soccer team. And their symbol is their mascot is the flamingo. So
I love it.
You see all these flamingos all over the place. So, Doug, without further ado, let's just jump in with our guests. I don't know if many more people have jumped on since you gave the disclaimer. So I don't know if you want to wrap the disclaimer up again in the introduction here, and then we'll bring on Suzanne.
Sure. Just a little trigger warning, or just a warning, I guess. We're going to be talking sexual content because tonight we're fortunate to have Suzannah Weiss. She is a sex educator and coach, feminist writer, been published in a bunch of different places like New York Times and stuff like that. So we thought it'd be great to have a guest on to discuss sex and relationships because it's not something we delve into much. So it's great that she agreed to be on. So yeah, let's bring her on. Suzannah Weiss.
Hold on, too much, like never, Doug.
Yeah, we have innuendo, and that's usually about as far as we go. So, yeah.
Right, but no like experts who actually know what the hell they're talking about. It's
not like us, not like us being bad. No.
Right, exactly. I mean, we have Renee, and she knows vastly more about much shit than we do. So that's that always helps.
Yourself where you were about to be like, she knows so much more about sex than we. Wait.
Oh, I was just no. It's because it's bigger and broader than all that. But that's all our co-hosts do that. But sorry, Doug, I stepped on your intro, but I didn't mean to. But here is Suzannah.
Hello.
Look at that.
Thank you with the cat. Perfect.
My name is Cat.
Yes, and what's his or her name?
His name's Mauricio, and he needs to stop Stepping on the keyboard.
Mauricio had the first word too. He's making sure he's out there.
Not sure what word that is.
Excellent. Renee?
Yeah, sorry. I almost forgot that I was supposed to start tonight. Sorry. So I'm like so interested in like what your job actually is. So like obviously I know like if I'm like feeling depressed or I'm feeling overwhelmed, I go to a therapist. I know what that looks like because I've been doing it for 10 years. But if I were to reach out to you and say I'm thinking about booking an appointment, like what kind of issues might I be coming to you with, and what kind of work would you be doing?
People come to me with all sorts of issues. I get people who are exploring non-monogamy for the first time and want to open their relationships, and I help them do that. I get people who have trouble orgasming or getting aroused when they want to, or other sexual issues, or even dating, just people who want help meeting the right people and figuring out what they want. So it's not so much like mental health issues like anxiety or depression or trauma, but more, sexual or relationship issues.
That's pretty great, because it's not something we generally in society talk about too much. Is just like the idea that although it is prevalent in everywhere in our society from any kind of media you look at, what kind of inspired you to get into this? Like, I mean, everybody thinks, oh yeah, I'd love to work in the sex industry of some sort, like in some sort of capacity. But what inspired you to go into this sort of therapy and coaching realm?
Yeah, I think it was growing up, I wasn't really talked to about sex at all, except a few sex ed classes, just teaching us how not to get pregnant. And when I went to college, I took a sexuality workshop, and that really opened my mind. And another cat, that opened my mind, told me like the ways in which I had been shamed for my desires, and the ways in which gender bias plays into that, and like helped me see sex in a more positive way, because I was 18 and I was starting to hook up, and people were already like trying to pathologize that, or like tell me I was being taken advantage of or something, just because I was like a college student who wanted to have casual hookups. And so it was that experience and just the inclusiveness that was promoted at that workshop, and I wanted to help sort of create a more inclusive, accepting world. And I did a bunch of other things before I found like sex and relationship coaching. I mean, before that, I was a writer, and I wrote about sex and relationships just because like I was going through dating and meeting different people, and that was what interested me. And then I think it was a life coach I was working with like suggested that I try out coaching, because I wanted to work with people instead of just being behind a computer. And then I found I really liked that.
Yep. Doug, do you have a follow-up? I don't want to step on you.
No, I was wondering if Renee had a follow-up, because
I
Jada mentioned with the whole gender stuff is what I was wondering.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So actually, I love what you're saying about how you got into it, because well, I was part of a very purity obsessed church when I was a teenager, and so I had to overcome a lot of slut shaming, and I did a lot of that in college too. But also, I think in addition to that, I think we sort of have this culture where, I mean, you read some of the statistics and you read about women's experiences, and you hear a lot about women who have never had an orgasm with a partner, who don't know how to ask for what they want. And this idea of like, that's still kind of got its tentacles in society about like women aren't supposed to want it. We're not supposed to really enjoy it as much as men are supposed to. We're not supposed to think about it as much or want it. So I guess where I would go with that is like, in the experience that you have working with so many different people, so many different issues, like I know you in your bio, it was you were identified as a feminist. I'm like hearing you be very sex positive. So I guess what I would ask is like, how do you approach like if someone came to you and was like, I have never had an orgasm with a partner. I am afraid to use toys. I'm afraid to ask for what I want. Like, what are like the first steps for like that you could give maybe to like a broader audience about like, as a woman, how to be comfortable with that, and as a man, how to just be like, hey, that's cool. Like, I want you to have a good time, instead of like, ooh, I'm scared because you might like your vibrator better than me, or you're telling me I'm not good enough,
So there are a bunch of different questions in there. I would address those separately. So not orgasming with a partner, that's something I've worked with a few times. That's an issue that I used to have, so I got very interested in that. And I'm teaching a class right now called Living Life Orgasmically that sort of tackles orgasm issues indirectly by teaching women about embodiment and how to be more present in your life and how to add pleasure to your life and feel less guilty doing things you enjoy. And I think some of it starts outside the bedroom. And so that's what I try to teach people, is to like make time to enjoy your body and just be present in your body and be aware of physical sensations. And that's one part of it, is just increased presence and awareness. And then another big part of it is learning to ask for what you want and feeling like you deserve it, and feeling like you deserve your partner's attention, your partner's time, and getting over that feeling of like shame that you're asking for anything, which is also something a lot of women can work on outside the bedroom, a lot of people in general. And your other question was more about, so there was a question about toys. Could you say that again?
It was kind of like a very weird analogous thing, so I'll try to like narrow it. I know that I hear a lot, in some of the Facebook groups I'm in, and just conversations with other women about like, well, like I really enjoy my vibrator and I want to use it in bed with my partner, but he is afraid of it, or he is offended by it, or he thinks it's like going to replace him. Like, I guess there's a dual question there of like, as the person who wants to use it, what's a good way to start that conversation? And as the person who's scared of it, like, what do they need to hear?
Okay, yeah. The person who wants to use it, I would say, if your partner, thinks that their ego is more important than your pleasure, then that's something to get somewhat fired up about, and to know that no, your pleasure is more important than your partner's ego. And a partner should be considerate enough, but the ego issue is real. And so I think it could help to reassure your partner that they're not replaceable, that it's an addition, just like you might want to eat ice cream with sprinkles on it. It's an addition. It's an enhancement. And, tell them what you like about them that only they can provide. And for the partner, I would say, there's a biological reason why people with vulvas usually need clitoral stimulation to orgasm, and why intercourse doesn't usually provide that, because the clitoris is not to the vaginal opening for orgasm to happen that way. So it's just a biological reality. It's nothing about your relationship or your inadequacy. And I think once people understand that, they can see that it's not really based on anything wrong that they've done.
Excellent. Renee, do you have any follow-up?
I could probably talk to Suzannah for like a day. So like, I'll step back.
Real quick here, Zach has a comment. Non-bedroom stuff in relationships really does make the bedroom stuff better.
Oh, the age thing.
He hates that he's old enough to see that now. Do you have any comments on that, Suzannah?
I'm not sure. So yeah, the non-bedroom stuff, that's what I try to emphasize to people, is that like the best way to learn how to feel more pleasure in bed is to learn how to feel more pleasure in your everyday life. Add things to your routine, even if it's just like making a tea that you really like, or eating something you like, or going for a walk, or something like that, that gets you in the habit of just A, feeling like you're worth it, and B, knowing how to feel your body. And I see you say, I hate that I'm old enough to know that. Well, why would you hope that? Because being old enough means you get to know that.
But I think he means more like, man, I wish I would have known this when I was younger.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with you, Doug. So Suzannah, I want to highlight your online, or it looks like it's an online class here course, but I want to put this up here. Hopefully everybody can see it, right? Okay, cool. And explain this, Suzannah. Go through it. Tell us what's going on with it.
Yeah, this is a course through a site called I'm Not Done. It's a learning platform for people ages 55 and older. They approached me to do a class about sex and relationships. So the class that starts April 19th, and it will be every Tuesday, but it's also recorded so people can join. And it's just $30 for 6 sessions, which is a great deal. And you can, so there's courses, there's 6 calls, and one is about learning how to date if you find yourself single later in life. One is about putting the spark back into your existing relationship. One is about working through sexual issues specific to women as you age, and one is for men. One is about just combating shame about being sexual later in life, and then one is about sort of more general keys to great sex and love. And I think this is important because people assume often that people at an older age will no longer be interested in sex. And there are some people who actually say the best sex of their life happens when they're older, because they know themselves really well, they're confident, they're comfortable with their bodies, and they're really close with their partners. So taking this class would be a good opportunity to sort of take advantage of the positives that come with getting older. And then there are some physical changes that may be perceived as negative, but can also be an opportunity to learn how to be sexual in new ways. And many of them can be worked through. And sometimes older people's sexual issues are a sign of underlying health issues. So it's really important to be aware of those and be able to talk about them.
Excellent. Renee?
Yeah, well, first of all, I love that because I love just removing the ageism thing from it. And I know I'm at an age now where I have a lot of female friends who are a little older than me, and they're like, I wish someone would have told me what I'm about to tell you. And so I love that that's work that you're doing. But one thing I wanted to kind of punt back to is talking about, the more pleasure you have outside of the bedroom, the more pleasure you have inside the bedroom. And I was actually listening to a really great podcast today that was talking about couples who are having issues with sexual intimacy. And the sexologist, I think, I can't remember her last name, but it was Dr. Janice. She was talking about all the ways in which we build intimacy that aren't sexual and how that starts to feed your sexual pleasure when you're with your partner because you have that other connection. And she was talking about things like, enjoying a sunset together, or you kiss in the hallway knowing that it's not going to be sexual. You're just kissing as you pass each other and things like that. And I was wondering if that's anything that you work with people on, if they're coming in and they're like, hey, sex life used to be great and now it's not so great. What can I do? Do you work on stuff like that in the relationship too?
Yeah, I've sorry, my cat.
That's all right.
Worked with couples who one has a higher sex drive than the other and is frustrated that the other doesn't want to have sex as much as they want, as well as couples who are just very busy with their work day and have trouble making the time for intimacy, or it's not as good because it feels rushed and they're in work mode. So yeah, I recommend people carve out time for things like take a break if you both work from home, take a break to cuddle in the middle of the day, or take a bath together at night, or for people couples where one has a higher sex drive, the other one can learn how to receive pleasure in a non-sexual way, so they can plan things like massaging each other and then be open to whatever that leads to, because sometimes one person may think they don't have a sex drive, but once that pressure is taken off and once they experience physical intimacy, they might find they're actually in the mood for it. And if the other person can let go of that and just enjoy connecting with their partner and not put pressure on them, then the other person is actually more likely to want sex with them. Because sometimes when one person feels pressure from another, then it just becomes a self-perpetuating cycle because nobody wants to have sex in response to pressure.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. So as a man of a certain age, The idea of you talking about having courses for folks who are older and intimacy. And yeah, I used to think that when I was young. I think part of it is, I mean, we've always had a culture that encouraged like sexy being youthful and thinking like, ew, my parents have sex. Well, yeah, they have sex. They had you. So yeah, they're going to have sex and they're going to keep having sex. And I think it's important to understand that like sex doesn't just stop when you're in your 40s. It keeps going, and maybe the frequency is less. Maybe the sex changes. As you get older, like for me, it's now more like I want to make sure my wife is getting the pleasure she needs, and that actually is good for me. Like I enjoy that, and also the idea of toys being making guys feel inferior. It took me a long time to get to that point where I realized it was actually beneficial for both of us. And it's, it helps her. Toys are good for guys too. And, it can be a really mutually beneficial thing. And I don't really have a question. I just wanted to remark on the idea of removing the kind of age portion out of it and just realizing that every stage of your life you have sex, but not every stage, but you know what I mean? When you start having sex from that on, sex changes as you age, and it changes in a lot of different ways. So I just think that's pretty excellent that you are offering a course like that for folks who may really need the help. So kudos.
Thank you.
And did I see that you had...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say, was there a question in there, Doug?
No, I said there wasn't one.
Okay, but Renee has one. I'm sorry.
I do. Sorry, it's okay. I saw in the stuff that Doug provided us to get ready for the show that you're actually offering a course specifically for men. Mm-hmm. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So like my courses up to now have been mostly focused on women and people with vulvas. And like I realized that that a lot of men who have sought me out for coaching or who I just know in my own life, like really want to be good men, especially men who, are attracted to women. They really want to empower women. They're not trying to be creeps. I mean, there are a few men who are creeps, but in general, men really want to do good. And so I created this course for men to be better at knowing, how to make a woman comfortable and how to please her without putting pressure on her, and how to practice consent in a way that's sexy, because it shouldn't be considered unsexy to ask what someone's into and check in with them. And I feel like there's so much talk these days about like the ways that men's sexuality can hurt women. I felt like it was necessary to teach men about how they can help women just through their sexuality, because I think a lot of men actually believe their sexuality is inherently bad or destructive. And so I really want to help men like see the beauty and light in their sexuality and how they can empower women if they treat them with respect.
I love that. And I love that you hit on the fact that like, I think, obviously there are men who are very problematic in their approach and they don't care. But I think that like as the dialogue culturally shifts, there are men who are like, I know that all of the things I was taught are problematic. I know that I'm not supposed to be like the hunter or the pursuer that just only cares about sex, but like, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to like do the other thing because no one ever told me, right? And I love that there's a focus on consent as well, because I think even like the most aware people have this idea that, not everybody obviously, but have this idea that like, if I have to ask you, is this okay? I'm going to ruin the mood. And like having ways to reduce that shame and like maybe some like ideas on what to say and things like that could just, really like lift a lot of that. And in addition to helping those men empower the women that they're with, you're empowering them because they know that they're not going to go out and like just completely blow it or do something and have to leave the next day and be like, did I do the right thing? Or, whatever. I just love that you're doing that. And I wonder, I guess, to make this into a question.
You don't have to make it into a question. I did.
But I guess I would wonder, like, was it the work you were already doing that made you realize that this was something necessary? Or is this something that maybe was like brewing in the back of your mind and it was just the right time? Or how did you come to this idea that like men kind of need you right now?
I think it was honestly my own life and thinking about men. You know, I have some sexual trauma, and I've like actually the most healing thing for me has been sex parties and Tinder, because like I've met men who just were so conscious, like aware of my body and aware of my boundaries and aware of what I liked and what I didn't and how to communicate, that I feel like I overcame so much trauma just by like having Tinder hookups and going to sex clubs. And I feel like, you know, you wouldn't think that, but I think that, yeah, feminism and empowerment like can be really fun, playful things. And yeah, and then it was like talking to men through my coaching who were just confused, or like she wants me, like women always say they want me to take charge, but then like they say you need consent for everything, or like it's impossible to be a man because like you can't win. It's like being a woman. But they're like, you know, if you're secure within yourself, then you can learn to embody all of the things you want to embody, both respectfulness and being dominant. If that's how you are, you can learn how to embody all of those things at once.
Excellent. We have a question from the audience. And then Renee, if you have other questions, everybody jumps in.
Like 3 episodes, so we're good.
Yeah. Anybody? Again, if y'all have questions, please put them up. Suzannah seems very, really open about answering them. So I don't know if this is really in your wheelhouse, Suzannah, but maybe it is. I mean, I'm not sure. What do you suggest for people with kids, basically? And is there a formula to this, or what do you suggest?
So I'm guessing based on this question that the person's main concern is noise. I would say you could make a game of it, like cover each other's mouths, or like yell into pillows, or maybe that could even be heard. But sort of, it could be hot actually to intentionally have a rule that you have to be quiet, and then other things become more intense, like your eye contact could become really intense. You could also, there are practical things you could do. You could have a white noise machine in your room that you turn on and just say it's so that you can sleep better. Actually, I know one person, well, I don't know if this would work. If the issue is that the room shakes, then that's a little more. I know one woman who like would put her laundry machine on every night, like while she would have sex with her husband, and that would actually take it, because that would make the house kind of shake, and so like the kids would question it. I'm not sure if the question's broader than that about like how to have a good sex life when you're with kids, because that's a whole other thing.
Well, yeah, and something you said that jumped off at me, Suzannah, is that women say, and you don't have to respond to this or not, but women say that it's sexier when a man does housework. So get the laundry done, and like, you know what I mean? And maybe that'll present, an opportunity. I like that. That's great. I love the laundry idea. It's fantastic.
I want to give specifically on the laundry thing. This is so funny because a guy I dated in right after high school shared that he always knew when his parents were having sex because his mom turned the dryer on.
Oh yeah.
Maybe switch it up. Don't use the washing machine and the dryer every time.
I don't know, if you do it every night, they might just think that's your routine.
There you go.
Right. All right. Doug, you have anything here, buddy?
Yeah, I'm going to branch off a bit from what we were talking about, but I think something we also don't talk about, which has kind of grown in our public conscience, is polyamory, non-monogamy, things like that. And there's a lot of people who are really interested in that sort of thing. And then a problem is I think a lot of people grew up in a lot of environments like we did, where it was very repressed, and no, monogamy is the only way. And how do you? I don't want to give away your secrets to how you coach, of course, but like, what are some of the things that just very basic things that you would say if someone is interested in that, but not sure if their partner would be. Like if there's some introductory things you could do for that.
Yeah, I would say if you're not sure if you're interested in it, I would say talk to a therapist or a coach first to figure out your own feelings. If you think it is something that you want to explore, then I would suggest bringing it up with your partner. Because if you never get to explore that side of yourself, then you might grow to resent your partner, or you might feel like you have a secret life almost. If you are keeping something from your partner, you want to be able to share as much as possible. So I would recommend telling your partner once you know that this is something that's interesting to you, and ask what their reaction is. And then depending how they react, you have to decide how important it is to you. If they are absolutely against it, then I would say keep talking to a professional yourself, see if it's really important to you, or if it's more important for you, like to save this relationship that is meaningful to you. And if your partner is like maybe interested, maybe not, maybe start with something really small. Like some couples, they call it monogamish. They do things that are not exactly non-monogamous, but sort of like one, they might flirt with someone else, or they might even go to something like a swingers party or a clothing optional resort and maybe have sex in public, or not totally public, but with other people there without engaging with other people, and just take those baby steps and see how that goes and whether it brings up conflict in your relationship. You definitely want to prioritize addressing any wounds that are triggered in both people over involving new people, because a relationship can only open up if both people already in the relationship are like secure in it. So just have lots of conversations, move slowly, and enlist the help of a professional if you encounter difficulties.
And Zach has I don't know if it's a point that you agree with or not, but I like you to remark on it. Whether you find them online, and then that's at least is that a step that you would approve of or that you would recommend?
Would I recommend finding people online?
Yeah, and having that be and having that be a bridge as opposed to inviting them over your house, which is a big step. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, there's an app called Field that is it was originally created for people looking for threesomes. Now it's a little broader, but it's used a lot by couples who want to open their relationship. You can link your profiles. I believe some dating apps, I know OkCupid also lets you link your profile with your partner. So that could be a way, and you could be honest on your profile, say like, I'm on here with my partner. We're just starting to explore this. We're looking for someone to chat with and maybe more, and just, leave it no pressure like that. And then you can both have discussions about the people you start chatting with, and don't keep that from each other. Be transparent about who you're meeting and make it a group process. And, that step alone could tell you if you're ready to invite someone over.
And I think that's smart to have both involved, moving forward. Renee, you have a follow-up.
Yes. So I love what you're saying about, when you kind of realize that there's something that you want, maybe you talk to a professional first, you talk to your partner, you see how they feel. And if they're like, no, then you have to kind of make these judgment calls. And I was just wondering if you could maybe expand on that a little bit in regards to things like certain kinks or things you want to try in bed where, if someone's like, I really want to be dominant, and their partner's like, oh, if you ever like do so much as like raise your voice to me in bed, then I'm out, like things like that. How would you, I know it would be similar, but what would be a good way to approach that kind of thing if one partner really wants something intense and the other partner's like, ooh, I don't know.
Well, I think it depends how much work both people are willing to do, but they could both, have conversations where they examine why do they want this, or why are they afraid of this? Why does this appeal to them? Why is this unappealing to them? Like someone who, if someone cannot raise their voice at them in bed, or else they feel really triggered. Why is that? Did their parents yell at them growing up? Is that something they're willing to change? Are they open to hearing about how that experience could be different, or even healing for them to have it done in a non-abusive context? Or do they just feel, and that's also valid, they just feel, no, this is too triggering for me? Then, okay, the other person has to decide how important it is. And they could also look at their reasons for wanting it. What is it about wanting to yell at a partner? Is it the power dynamic? Is it just the ability to express yourself freely? Are there other ways that you might be able to get that aren't triggering to your partner? And maybe you can reach a compromise.
Excellent. I just want to get back to real quick because you presented two different courses. Now, this is a different course, and it looks like here when I read the details that it's a Zoom course. So can you explain this course specifically? And then also, is there a broader place that we could find you? Meaning, you send us some links, and that's great, but they're long-ass, crazy links that I don't know if anybody's going to be able to type in. So is there an easy way to get a hold of you, like via Google, and then will that lead us to you? Or is there a link that Doug and I can share on our social media? Doug and I and Renee can share on our social media this week. I'll share the links on my social media, but I want there to be if there's a better way that we can find you. But can you start with explaining this one again? Because we have, I would say the majority of people who stream us are men, so they need this.
Yeah, it's a Zoom course for men who sleep with women, who want to learn how to please women, as well as how to practice good consent, close the orgasm gap, help women just feel more comfortable with themselves. So this course, it's an hour long, and it's from 6 to 7 PT, April 13th, but will also be recorded, so you don't need to be there at that time. It's just $25, and yeah, you can sign up at that link. I know it's a long link. So you can find all my courses as well as other info about me at my website, SuzannahWeiss.com, just my name.com, or search Twitter for Suzannah Weiss. My handle is just my name. And on Instagram, it's backwards Weiss Suzannah. So you can find me all those places.
Excellent. Doug?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways and questions we can go, I'm sure, because sex is a broad subject. We tamp it down, but it's a lot of different things, right? So I'm going to ask you a question. It's going to sound a little off, but so you're talking about creating intimacy outside of the bedroom, which I think is super important. There's a whole thing with the sort of, I hate the acts of love thing because it's steeped in religious nonsense, but there's certain parts of it that are true in that, for me, acts of service are the way that I show love. If I'm doing something where I like doing something for my partner. So my wife, every day, one of the things I do every day is I get up in the morning, I take the dog out, and I make us coffee, and I make a really good cup of coffee. But it's something that I do, and then I bring it up to her in bed, and then we spend a little time together just talking, or sometimes we just watch TikTok, but we're together and we're having coffee. But how I receive is I'm very much touch, and I want to be touched, and I fortunately she does too. But do you speak about those sort of things? I don't really want to do the acts of love thing, but maybe that's how you do it. But how do you see that?
Love languages.
Yeah. Acts of love is around, but love languages, yeah, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't researched those too deeply, but I think they can be useful to just know what your partner considers a sign of love. It doesn't have to be one of those 4 categories. You could just have a conversation and ask them what makes you feel cared for and appreciated. Because I think the basic point behind that system is that we sometimes assume people need what we need when it could be something different. So I like to say, like, don't do unto others as you have them do unto you. Do unto others as they would have you do unto them. And so that's one way to make sure you're doing that, is to learn their love language or other ways they like love expressed to them.
Doug, I just want to say, I love what you said, because I literally just said to somebody, my husband brings me coffee in bed every morning and he does the taxes, so I cannot let him go.
To be clear, my wife can make coffee. It's not that she can't. It's just that I enjoy doing it. It's actually a thing that I enjoy. I know that I'm giving her something she likes and enjoys. So to me, that matters. So, but that's a sort of not an unspoken, because we've talked about it and I've actually written about that's an actual act of love that I like. A ritual is love is what I called it. And Greg just commented in our little chat that Jill's spoiled. She is, but so am I. So the thing is if you spoil each other, that's the thing. It's not just if it's one-sided, that's a problem, I think.
Yeah.
And if it's something where one person is doing all the work, the work of the relationship, that's a problem. Do you see that as like? I could see that being a very real issue for sexual intimacy or intimacy in general in a relationship. Do you see that a lot, where like one person's like, I'm doing all the work? Like, do you see that a lot in your coaching?
Yeah, well, I talk to a lot of women who really have trouble believing their pleasure is as important as their partners. Because I think because of what Renee was talking about, how we have this idea women don't really want sex and sex is for men. So a lot of what we learn is around pleasing men. And so there are, it can go both ways, but I see a lot of relationships where it's mainly about the man's pleasure, not because the man doesn't care, but maybe because he didn't learn how to please women, or maybe because he feels insecure and is afraid that if he tries, he'll fail. Or, just because we have intercourse as the main definition of sex. And that's usually, it can be very pleasurable for a woman, cis woman, but for most women and men, like more men get pleasure out of intercourse than women. And, or at least orgasm through intercourse. It can still be pleasurable without an orgasm. But since we have that, it's not always known that like people with vulvas need foreplay. And it's not just foreplay, because it can be the main event. It can be necessary for someone with a vulva to orgasm. So I think there's sexual scripts that can lead a relationship to be unequal. And I think that there's the biggest obstacle I see is just for women to feel like they deserve as much pleasure as their partner. And like, even though that's not the dominant script, or that's not the default way of doing things, that they can have a conversation and actually talk about what they want. Because what happens when you don't talk is you just fall back on the societal default.
Yeah. I before I get to my second beer, I wanted to make a comment on the idea of foreplay. And I think sometimes as I've gotten older, I've kind of realized that foreplay can be the main event, and that's actually okay. And the idea of a guy orgasming every time that should not be the focus. It's important in some realms, and some women like their partners to orgasm and do all that stuff, and that's all dependent on the relationship. But like the idea of foreplay being like, oh well, this is what we're doing, and that's good. We're good right there. And I don't think that gets enough kudos, because foreplay can be a lot of different things. But the idea of like, there's times where, if I'm just wanting my wife to be pleased and I'm not really, it doesn't bother me if I'm not having anything on that. To me, I am getting something out of that, because I'm getting the fact that she's pleased. And, that's just how it works for us. Doesn't mean it happens that way all the time, because she likes to see me pleased too. But there's some give or take. And the idea of foreplay being the actual sexual act is great, because it is a sexual act.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, foreplay, it could also mean just making out, could also be its own sexual act, or just cuddling.
Yeah.
It should never be assumed that it has to lead to anything else.
Yeah. Amen to that. So I'm just going to crack a beer here, and then Renee, you can get to it. But so I'm just opening a survival blonde which was one of our things. We had Charles Wazalewski on a few weeks ago. One of his beers from Martin City Brewing. I'm going to crack that open. I think Greg had it a few weeks ago, 5%. I'll crack it. And Renee, please hammer on since I'm doing this dumb stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still drinking. Actually, I'm not still drinking the same whiskey because if I had another one, this would go off the rails. I'm a lightweight. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, and earlier you mentioned how taking the pressure off can actually lead to people who maybe feel like they don't want to have sex. Suddenly, I want to have sex, and you and Doug were just discussing like foreplay can be the main event. And I was wondering if you had any experience with working with people on sensate focus, and if you want to talk about that at all, like in situations where maybe people are trying to reconnect, or they have varying libidos, or there's just too much pressure, or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so sensate focus basically means just learning to be super present and aware of all your sensations. So there are different activities people can do. Like there's a tantric exercise called eye gazing where people can just sit cross-legged facing each other and gaze into each other's left eye and synchronize their breathing. And it's a connective exercise that just, it calms your nervous system and connects to people and just makes you feel more in sync, may even increase feelings of closeness. There's, different exercises like sensation sharing, where you can play with different sensations, like try touching each other lightly or with more of a scratching sensation, or using things like a feather tickler. You can play around with different sensations, and that can help you to just feel more with less stimulation. Because a lot of the time we want to just use really strong vibrators or just like fuck really fast and hard, when like sometimes more of it is about pausing and just like taking in what is already happening.
I kind of like that idea, because I think sometimes too, it's like this idea of like, people talk about when someone touches the back of their knee, or, being kissed just behind the ear, and these things that like we think of as very sexual, even though they don't actually involve any like erogenous zone. And it's that like maybe the idea of like you're being touched somewhere that you're not used to being touched, or you're being touched somewhere or in a way that you're not used to being touched in that way. And it can be really exciting just because it's different, or because it feels very intimate, because, your friends aren't going to tickle the back of your knee or kiss you behind the ear or whatever it might be. So I love that.
And there are people, some people with disabilities who may not be able to access their genitals, who can orgasm just through like touching their ear. People, orgasm happens in the brain. So really any part of your body can be orgasmic. It just, the first step is thinking of it as sexual, and just, being open to having that happen, and sort of putting it into a sexual context, whether that's with a partner or by yourself, with some mood setting, like putting on sexy music and just like getting into a sexy mood before you do it. Sometimes I work with, breast massage. I assign people exercise to massage their breasts. And the idea is to build up sensation there, where maybe people only think about their genitals. And that could, it could be for anyone. They don't have to have breasts. It could be like the nipples can be sensitive for anyone of any gender. And like sometimes people are surprised by how much bodies they didn't consider sexual can feel sexually.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
So
Greg's like, we are moving on with the show structure.
We'll absolutely get back to we'll absolutely be able to get back to that. But I wanted to, Suzannah said that she had some things that she was reading, and I just wanted to know whether they were sexually based or not. But I was just fascinated in general about what you're reading. So Suzannah, what are you reading?
So I'm right now in a training program called Somatica. It's a sex and relationship coach training program with a specific approach that involves embodiment. And so I've been enjoying the assigned reading for that course. Let's see, there was a book, I think the most interesting one, it's actually called My Grandmother's Hands, and it's about racial trauma and how it can get passed down from generation to generation and affect our lived experience of our bodies. So how like people in the US, no matter what race there are, usually have some kind of racial trauma that can sort of cause a nervous system activation based on like what their ancestors have had to endure. And they use science to talk about that, how like we can actually pass on memories to our children. So that's been super interesting.
Is that it right there?
Yeah, that's it.
Excellent. Cool. And it's available Amazon and Audible. It looks like audiobooks for y'all who listen to books. Anything else, Suzannah, that you're interested in that you want to share or that you're reading?
The Guide to Getting It On, which is actually, it's like a silly sort of almost like Sex for Dummies kind of book, but it's actually has really interesting medical information. It's 800 pages, which is a lot. But it talks all about the anatomy of the penis and the vulva and like interesting things that you would not have thought.
All right. Guide to Getting It On.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Doug, what do you got getting it on?
Well, not a sex book. Definitely not a sex book. So one of the books that I'm reading, because I tend to read several at once, is something called Goddess of Filth by V. Castro.
I love V. Castro.
So this is really, because it harkens back to her, ancestry, not specifically hers, but like her ancestry, I guess. But like it's really interesting. She's great at writing horror, and her books are not very long, but they're really great. They're really fast. They're super engrossing. So yeah, I'm not quite done with this one yet, but again, it's not super long, so I'll be done with it probably in the next couple of days. I think it's excellent. I have a book thing that I wanted to ask Suzanne about, and I don't know if she's ever read it, but it's something called Bach by Mary Roach, which is Mary Roach is like an old school sex therapist author, and Bach was like about all the various different studies done on sexuality back like in the 70s, like the Masters and Johnson, I think, was like the main one way back when. And so I don't know if you've ever read that, but I think that book's excellent, and it's funny as well. So
I think I did, but it was a really long time ago. I think I also saw her TED Talk. Did she have a TED Talk?
Yeah, she did, and she's great. So yeah, I read that book a while back too, but I just didn't know if you had, because it talks about sex research, which is really kind of a fascinating thing, because the sex research back when they first started was like not good at all, and just really based on like almost everything was centered on the men, and like women were hysterical, and that's where we got that whole women were horny, then they were hysterical, and they were should be sent to a lunatic asylum and stuff like that. But later in the 70s, the Masters and Johnson stuff was actually a good start. It needs to be expanded, but yeah. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Hey, Renee, what's going on?
Yeah, actually, so I don't know if I mentioned it last time I was here, but like I went back to school full time, so most of my reading is related around school, and this is one that's kind of related to school, and kind of I'm just reading it on my own. And I have heard the author Richard Schwartz speak a few times, and I was just really interested to see what he was on about. And he founded this like approach to therapy called internal family systems, and the way I would describe it is like it's like Inside Out but way more complex. That like there's all these different parts inside of you that like have their own agendas, but his main thing is that like you don't have to hate any of your parts. You can be mad at any of your parts. Like you can learn to accept them, and by accepting them, like when you show your parts compassion, like they calm down, because like every part of you is just trying to protect you, right? And I'm not very far into this book, but it's been really interesting, and I feel like even if you don't like vibe with everything he has to say, and I have to say I'm not sure that I do, there's this real freedom and like intellectually stimulating idea that like maybe the part of me that's a perfectionist that makes me super sad when I don't get the grade I want doesn't need to be shunned, but I need to understand it a little bit better and like figure out what it's trying to do for me. And if I can figure out what it's trying to do for me, I can find ways to do it for myself and calm that part of me down. So I don't have to be anxious or freaked out when I get a B. I can just do what I need to do. And that's a weird example because he gets into some really intense stuff in the book. And I was so excited because I bought this book just because I thought that that Richard Schwartz was interesting. But the intro is by Alanis Morissette, and all throughout chapter one, like a dozen quotes from Jonathan Van Ness, who's like my favorite person. I named my lizard after him. So it's actually really fun too, in addition to being just really interesting and like a new way to kind of look at what's going on inside your head. And like I said, like I don't know if it's like the answer to everything. I haven't even finished the book, but it's one of those things that's very intellectually stimulating and like might help you view some of the things you've got going on in a different way. So like maybe you take what you need and leave the rest, or maybe you take it all and it's your new life. I don't know, but I've been enjoying the hell out of it. And I actually signed up to be like in a book club where the author is going to talk, and I'm super excited about it. So,
well, cheers. And Doug, before I cut you off, you had a question for Suzannah.
I can't even remember what it was, so let's move on.
look at what I did. Renee, do you?
Like I said, I could talk to Suzannah for like 3 days straight, like full 72 hours. So let's not focus on me.
No worries. But again, I want to make sure that all questions are asked. And we're reaching the hour point here, so I don't know if we want to wrap up with Suzannah. If she needs to go or not, I'm not sure. But if we do, I just want to make sure everybody gets in everything that we want to get. So if you have a question, shoot, Renee, and that's why you're here.
Well, now I can't think of anything specific. I'm just really excited. Okay. Like, I'm going to go to your website and everything, and like hopefully, I don't know. Sometimes when I co-host, I get to be friends with the guests afterwards. So like, fingers crossed, but no pressure.
No worries. Well, we can get to my silly question, Doug. It looks like you have something now, right?
Yeah, I actually have a question, and I believe, and it's just something that I saw that actually I found you on Twitter, Suzannah, because there's some other folks that I think supporting sex positive and sex therapists and things like that are really important because we don't do it enough. And one of the things you talked about was that you use OnlyFans in a really super interesting way that most folks do not. So I was wondering if you could expand upon that and talk about how you utilize that platform in a way that's non-traditional.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore, and I kind of miss it. But what I did was I had a site, an OnlyFans page that was part sexy, erotic material and part education. So I might show a video of myself masturbating and talk about like the different stages of arousal, or do an instructional thing. Here's how you give a breast massage. And I actually really enjoyed that. I think I just kind of worried about how it could affect my reputation. What if something gets leaked? Which is a shame. That nobody should have to worry about that, because it's not like it's hurting anyone. But that's the world we lived in. We lived in. So I don't do that any longer, but I did have a lot of fun with that.
Yeah. And I just remember seeing like you were using it in almost like a therapeutic way. And a lot of folks think that OnlyFans is just this means to go get live porn, I guess, which is fine. And that's great. But you're using it such a different way. And I really found that really fascinating and great, because it gives people a tool to find a place that goes, okay, well, maybe I can't go here, but maybe I can go here. And it's a little more private, and I can get this information about how to maybe please myself better, or whatever it may be. I just thought that was really great. I know that's something that is unusual for that particular platform, which is why I asked.
Right, and but she was hitting the prime demographic and doing it in a way that's different, so that I'm sure she found some people who got help. And got further understanding about their own sexual lives by going to that venue and doing it. So I agree with Doug. Kudos for however long you did it, because I believe at some point you hit somebody you know, where they needed it. So, pun intended, right, Doug? I mean, come on, man. Anyway, anyway, so unless Suzannah has anything more, we have a question from the audience here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you can see that, right, Suzannah?
Mm-hmm.
So, how often do you deal with people who have fetishes that were once fulfilled by the partner but not anymore? How do you work with people who still want that fetish fulfilled? How would you navigate that one?
Yeah, I guess I would say something similar to what I said about kinks, that you have to maybe discuss it with your partner. Sorry, my cat's like showing his back.
That's the cat's kink is showing us your butthole.
You know, talk to your partner about it and see if there's any wiggle room, if they might be willing to look at their unwillingness to do it and where that comes from. If you might be able to look at why you want to do it, maybe there's some other way to fulfill that. If they're open to it, you could use a site like OnlyFans. Some people aren't open to that. That could be another discussion. Why aren't you open to that? What are you afraid of? Are you afraid it'll replace me? Maybe you can reassure them that it won't. Or, the non-monogamy might be another option if someone wants to find people for that specific fetish. Again, it depends how comfortable that partner is with their partner going elsewhere. And just do your best to explain to your partner why it's important to you. And that it's not about them, that, this is a specific fetish of yours that you've had in all relationships. And it's not that they're not enough. They're just not that specific thing. And just have a lot of conversations and focus on quelling any emotions that come up for either partner. And once those emotions are addressed, then there may be more options for.
I think we froze.
How to address the actual.
I think Suzannah froze there for a bit, unfortunately.
Well, Zach has jokes.
Look at Zach.
All right. You're back. You we lost you a little bit, Suzannah, but I think we got most of what you were putting down for sure, right, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep, and Jade, she thanks you. So excellent. So Suzannah, one of the things we like to do, I don't know if you've ever seen this, but we love, this conversation is something that we Doug says we rarely have. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say we don't ever have, really. If you take the whole embodiment of our work or how long we've been doing this stream, we talk about sex really never. So it makes sense for us to have a really good hour with you to talk about that. But we like to talk about silly subjects. So I like to see if what your opinion is on this. Everybody's been talking about the slap heard around the world. And Suzannah, what is your big, you have a big take out of the whole Will Smith slapping Chris Rock for insulting his wife at the Oscars? Is there an angle that grabs you? I know most people jump off and say they don't care, but when you go a little bit deeper there's an issue that irks somebody about this, whether it's the insult to the wife, whether it's the the slapping part. Anything jump off at you?
To be honest, I've seen this on my news feeds and I have not clicked and read about what actually happened. Maybe you could summarize. I mean, you basically summarized.
You're better off not, but
the summary would be, I guess, right, that Chris Rock was hosting the Oscars. He made a joke about Jada Pinkett Smith's hair, which is a result of alopecia. Will Smith went on stage, slapped him, sat back in his seat, and said, I think twice, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth.
Wow.
Now everybody's got, a million opinions, and they vary greatly.
Yeah. Okay, so I have two thoughts. One, I'm glad he defended her, for making, it sounds like his remark was like sexist and kind of, I don't know, it's the word ableist, just not sensitive to people with various health conditions. So I'm glad he defended her. You know, I also think that slapping someone, you know, is physically abusive, and there might be a bit of toxic masculinity in there. Like, I need to protect my wife by like fighting the other men.
Right. I find it really fascinating that you because you know there are people who weren't engaged in this at all, and I find it fascinating that you're one of them. I just find it fascinating when anybody's really not engaged with, you know, whatever, especially in our social media age where it just really, you know, sometimes these issues, whether you care about them or not, can feel overwhelming if everybody's involved in talking about it. And you're just like, look, I'm not even trying. I like what Suzannah said. I saw it, but I didn't click on it. And that's just, sometimes that is my life. Sometimes you just see the headline, and the headline's enough for you not to click on it.
Enough for you not to.
Right. Sometimes you're like, my mental health can't take this click. So is this better if I just don't know about it? But we do a weekly show, and pop culture is part of you know, what we talk about. So if we didn't talk about this, I'm sure people would be commenting that we did. So I'm just gonna say we're gonna go to Renee. Renee,
Okay.
What was your quick take on this?
So you know how I felt originally, which was like, you know, yeah, sometimes people need to get slapped. And like I learned that there was a history of him making these jokes about Jada Pinkett Smith. I learned that both Jada Pinkett Smith and Will Smith had asked him to stop. Like I learned all this, and I was like, you know, fuck it, maybe he needed it. But after watching everybody talk about it for a week, I've totally changed what I care about in this situation. And what I care about in this situation is Jada Pinkett Smith. And she is either absent from the conversation, or people are using it as an excuse to slut shame her, to talk about what a bitch they think she is, to talk about how ugly she is, to just further dehumanize her and bully her. And she's a human being. And I've seen people say that she's somehow responsible for her husband's behavior in that moment. That she's somehow, you know, all these really weird things that I think do involve misogyny. They do involve racism. And it's like, you know, I'm not responsible for what my husband does. Like, I'll do my best if he comes to me first and I'm thinking about doing X, to be like, ooh, you sure you want to do that? But like, if he just acts in the moment and someone says, Renee, that's your fault, I'll be like, no, he's a crony. Right? So it's not Jada Pinkett Smith's fault that Chris Rock made the joke. It's not her fault that her husband reacted the way he did. It has nothing to do with whether or not they have an open relationship. It has nothing to do with whether you liked her in certain movies. It has nothing to do with the fact that she used to be in a relationship with Tupac. Like, these are all things that are coming up. And if you take out what Will Smith did, which, again, in his mind, it probably had a lot to do with her, but for her as a human being, it didn't have anything to do with her. She was insulted on a public stage by a person who in that moment was in a position of power. And then a whole subset of people were like, yeah, and now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to insult her. I'm going to make assumptions about her. I'm going to say nasty things about the fact that, you know, when they were separated, she had other relationships, or maybe they have an open relationship or whatever. I'm not really sure, so I don't want to comment on that. And like, she's just a human being, and she's a human being who part of her job, her income, her self-worth and validation comes from how she looks. And someone insulted her looks on the public stage. And why would we take that as an opportunity to further
jump on her? Yeah, I was going to say before we get to Doug that, like, there's many layers to this, but the thing that kind of annoyed me the most was this, I don't know, I guess the way Chris Rock delivered it gave the impression that women with bald heads are not attractive. And I'm here to tell you that that's not true for all men, because for me, I think Jada Pinkett Smith is a good-looking woman with her hair or not. Right. So, like, I was kind of weirded out because I'm like, well, I don't know if that's necessarily a dig. And he meant it as a dig.
He did.
But for me, when I was looking at it, I'm like, is that, I don't know, for me, is that really a dig? Because, again, you know, so I looked at it kind of differently. I mean, he meant it as a dig, and I got all that. I'm not saying he did it. I'm
gonna
just saying that, like,
my
I looked
James.
at it like, yeah, and you know what? If you're, and it does come back to what Renee said and what Suzannah said, which is y'all ladies are way more scrutinized about the way you look than men are, and of course, with all due respect, Doug, a man with no hair is a non-conversation. It's not even. If the joke was delivered to that, people would have been like, "What is this?"
Oh, but I saw that
I mean?
also for the Lindsay too.
Right.
I
But
saw
like, right. But I'm sure if, Suzannah has that wonderful long hair that she's got going on there. And I'm sure that she would get looks and she would be judged if she went bald. And I just don't like that at all about society. And it really makes me sick the more I think about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm just like, this isn't really about, you know what I mean? Like, she's a great looking female. She's just great looking.
Even if she doesn't, she still deserves respect.
Yeah. And on that note, Doug.
So real quick before we go to Doug, I know. But
Right.
2 things. One, everything you said, because it doesn't matter. She could be the ugliest woman in the world and she does not deserve to be ridiculed like that. And the second thing is that as a woman veteran, I am so freaking sick of people trying to tell me that G.I. Jane jokes are insults. They absolutely are. That movie was about how Demi Moore's character had to give up her femininity to play with the big boys. Well, guess what? I was a woman the whole time I was in the Marines. I never stopped being a woman when I was a Marine, and I was good at it. And I'm still a woman today. I don't have to give up any part of myself to be a veteran, to be a woman in a male-dominated field. And that applies to any male-dominated field. But I've heard so many G.I. Jane jokes, I could spit. I could live my whole life without hearing another one. Is it a badass movie? Yes. Was Demi Moore amazing in it? Yes. Was Demi Moore absolutely stunning with no hair? Yes. But that is not what people are trying to communicate when they make those jokes about women.
Right. And Rock wasn't on that angle. Doug?
So I'm going to talk a bit to the ableist angle that Suzannah mentioned. So my wife, when one of our kids was having a health issue, and a pretty severe one, had alopecia, lost clumps of hair. It was really traumatic for her because society judges women a lot on their hair as one of the millions of things they judge women on. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, part of it was we had to shave side of her head, which I thought was fucking hot. Like in ways I can't explain. It was like Cressida for fucking Hunger Games. I don't know why I found it insanely hot, but for her it was really fucking traumatic. So you see people who have alopecia. I have another friend who has she's alopecia I think it's alopecia totalis is the word where she has no hair. And she wears wigs sometimes, but that's her reality. And you think about women or men, whatever. But in this case, we're talking about women because Jada was the person pointed out. Alopecia, that's not something they can control. That is a disease they have. And the ableist take is well, I'm hair. Ha ha ha. That's not cool. It's not good. It's not a good look on you. Just make fun. It's punching down as a comic.
Yes.
And I remember there was George Carlin, who's one of my very favorite comics of all time, said, if you are punching down, then you are not doing comedy right. You should be punching up.
I agree.
So thank you for bringing up the ableist part, Suzannah, because that's, I think, is a thing that gets a little bit lost there.
And I just think every time somebody's visual identity changes, it's traumatic. Even if it's something that the world looks at as positive, it can be traumatic to look in the mirror and not recognize yourself. Mm-hmm. If it's something society views as negative, now that's compounded. And that's my final thought on it. Sorry, Greg, didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. I was just going to toss it back to Suzanne to see if she had any comments after our comments, or we can move on.
I think you guys covered it. It really is.
Okay. Cool. We're going to give Suzannah the last word to talk about anything that we didn't discuss or something that she would like to get out as a narrative for what she does. But before that, I wanted to make sure that Renee and Doug did not have any more questions.
I have a zillion questions, but I would love to see if maybe Suzannah another time we could have you on to discuss more stuff if you're good with that.
I feel like any questions I have left, I've got to book a session, so we're good. I'm not ready to tell all your listeners about my life.
And Suzannah, is that something that somebody could do with you? Meaning, we know you have the classes, but is that if somebody hits you up on your website, is that something that we could do like one-on-one or maybe couples, or do you offer that?
Yeah, both couples and one-on-one. I have a page about my coaching on my website. You can email me, SuzannahLweiss@gmail.com, to talk more about it, or just fill out the contact form on my website, and we could set up a conversation. And also, for those who can't afford that, I'm actually starting to write a column, actually 2 different columns for 2 different publications, where I respond to people's questions and give people sex advice. So if you can't afford coaching, you could try just writing me, and then maybe you'll be in my next column.
Okay, where can we find those columns? That would be good.
Yeah, one is for a site called kinkly.com. It's a site about sex and relationships. And then one is for dame.com. It's the website for Dame Products, the sex toy company.
Oh, cool.
Could you repeat that? I didn't. Dame? Or, okay. Dame.com. Got it.
Mm-hmm. Suzannah, any last words on something we missed, a narrative that you talk about, or you're good?
Oh, is there anything else? I also have a free course for people with vulvas called the Orgasm Cure, which is for learning to improve your orgasmic abilities. It's over email, so you get an email once a day for 2 weeks with different assignments you can do and different tips. So you can also find that on my website.
Awesome.
Excellent. What I like about you, Suzannah, is, first of all, you came on to talk to us. So I love that. But what I really like is that you give people different lanes of comfortability. You've acknowledged that people are sometimes not comfortable with sharing. So you're giving them all these different, whether it be emails, Zoom sessions, columns, one-on-one, with my spouse, without, you know what I mean? I just love that you are open to all these different areas, because I believe that there's that almost level of degree where people are comfortable. You know, it feels like, respectfully, Renee's really comfortable with talking about you, and we are talking with you. We have that level, but we also have a level of people who, you know, might only feel comfortable via email. And I just like that you're open to all of those avenues, but your experience probably brought you to this place. Mm-hmm. So that's good too. Let me check one more time. Or I'm sorry, Renee, go on.
I just want to add to that. I love your price points, honestly, because I think a lot of people struggle to ask for help with personal issues, period. And then once they figure out that they really want to ask for the help, they look at the cost of the help and they're like, uh-oh. And you have really affordable courses. You have ways that people can get it. Maybe they have a chance getting into your advice column, which is free. You have this free course. You're coming here and you're taking listener questions. I love that you're getting that information out there in ways that are accessible to the most people. And I hope that you have a good balance of making sure that you're getting paid what you're worth as well.
I was going to say that. I hope you're right.
That's important too, you know.
Right.
But I love that you're making the information available, because I feel like everybody needs it at some level. Whether they're just going to click over and read your advice column and never tell anybody that they read it, or they're going to book a one-on-one session or take one of your courses. I hope that in addition to getting the information out there, you are making a salary commensurate with the amount of information that you're providing and the services that you're giving to the world, because it's so important. So I just wanted to make a comment on that, because I don't know that everybody listening understands how expensive it can be.
Mm-hmm.
To book somebody who's a specialist in a certain area, it could be a lot. So.
Okay. And one last question. Jada, she would like to know about your tattoo, if you would like to share.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there is a story behind this tattoo. So when I was in college, I worked for a feminist theory journal, and I was editing a piece called Unoctopussies, the Anatomy of Female Sexual Power, or something like that. And I forget the author's name. Gerard is his first name. I forget his last name, but you could Google this. And it was talking about the octopus as a symbol of women's sexuality throughout history. For example, in the book, Toilers of the Sea by Victor Hugo, which was sometime in the 1800s, I think. It talks about sailors afraid of being eaten, swallowed up by this giant octopus. And the octopus in this paper I read, it was analyzing this and saying the octopus was a symbol of the vagina because it's like engulfing. And that connects to something else I had read. It was a theorist named Luce Rigori who talks about like, why do we think of sex as like man penetrates woman? Why is it not woman envelops man? And so the octopus to me is a symbol of just female sexual power, and just as women, not as just objects, but as subjects. And I had an ex-boyfriend who would always be like, are you saying women should eat men? And like, I really didn't think of that. That's not what I'm trying to say.
Sorry.
About the ability to be an active agent and not just a passive receptacle.
I can't wait to share that with my husband because I have this octopus tattoo and he has a different one in a different style. And I'm like, guess what? That's your feminine power tattoo. That's your badge tattoo. So I love that. I love it. But, sorry?
That's so strange that we both have that.
Yeah. And mine is a woman with an octopus on her head.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that was, it also talked about that in the paper that in France, there was once a style where women would wear their hair, like they would put it in, I don't know if it was braids, but they make it look like tentacles.
Oh my God. What is the name of the paper again?
On Octopuses, the Anatomy of Female Power. I can make sure I'm right.
I mean, I feel like that'll be close
Every
enough.
time Renee comes on here, she goes into some tangent of something that Greg and I are like completely lost on, and it's great. It's always great. It's always great.
Right. Well, all right, Suzannah, it's been fun. Again, we all want to thank you.
Yeah.
And you got your last words in, but you get another time if you want, right here. But otherwise, we want to thank you, and hopefully we'll see you again.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back on. I think she
Oh,
froze again.
Oh, she froze again.
Well, we can wait because I think it came back last time.
Yeah.
You came back last time, so
Oh, here she is.
Yay! All right. Did you hear us saying goodbye there?
Yeah, we wanted to say goodbye again, and we wanted to thank you for being on. And you get the last word. If not, thank you again.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Suzannah. That was great. So, Doug, you have a third beer?
Yeah, and I wanted to get to it because it's a series that I get every year. This is Jack's Abbey Framing Hammer. This is their French toast. Oops, should I get it over in the middle of the screen? French toast maple barrel aged. So this is a stout that is 12%. But the Framing Hammer, they released 4 this year. I had 3 of them. One I was just not interested because the flavor profile sounded really weird to me. And usually I'm all about weird, but that one sounded too weird even for me. So, yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh, man, this smells exactly like French toast and maple syrup. It's look at that. It's like blub, 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 blub coming out. So
this is a fascinating one, Doug, from the aspect of, look at that. Whack is beautiful too. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
We had all kinds of inappropriate comments that I was not going to subject Suzannah to, but I will subject us to.
Of
Doug,
course, exactly. I would like to clarify that no, that is not a kink of mine. So thank you very much.
Doug, how was that?
That's the reason.
It tastes like, it smells exactly like French toast and maple syrup. It's really good from that perspective. And it tastes good too. It's not as syrupy as I was expecting because you think maple bourbon barrel aged. It's not as barrely and mapley as I expect on the taste, but the nose is perfect. Really good. But it's a dessert beer. So you have one and you're good. So yeah.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Amazing. Yeah, I feel like all the beers you drank today. So
right.
I love language is that, by the way.
Yes, Zach, you know me too well. Manny says that he used to run a 1-900 service to whisper naughty cereal thoughts. Look, I'm not. No judgment here.
No, me either.
Right. Whatever
You
you're.
all
Whatever
have
you're.
moments with Captain Crunch. Little leprechaun from Lucky Charms. You know, I don't know. I don't judge. I love you guys.
Oh, honey, smack me. Right. Give me a smack and I'll smack you back. We can go this for. We can do this all night.
Oh, and now I'm upset.
Excellent. Excellent. So here we So I just want to give a shout out to our friend Jerry Richard, whose birthday is today.
Oh,
happy birthday, Jerry! Woo! You're old now, buddy.
I'm the oldest one in this crew, so I don't think that's
right. As I get older, my friends get older. Now I start to insult them on their birthdays as opposed to just.
Let me tell you
No,
something.
so you old fart.
I want to share a life hack with you guys, and with all of the people who come every week. I married a man who is 9 years older than me. I always get to be young, no matter what. So that's a life hack for you.
I'm 7 years older than Jill, so yeah.
Yeah, you screwed up, Doug. But Jill's
Right.
Jill's worth
So funny thing about that is the idea is like, so you know, obviously I had health scare stuff, and then we were talking today about, well, if you die before me, and I'm like, what do you mean if? I'm fucking 7 years older than you. Of course I'm gonna die before you guys.
Reality, though, I hate to say it because men die younger than women.
Right.
And
Right.
usually in age gap relationships, whether it's a small one or a big one, usually it's the man that's older. And you know, I think about that reality sometimes because I have an older husband. So
yeah.
Show me your crunch berries, Doug.
Hey, by the way, that is the best kid cereal ever, is Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. Do you disagree?
I don't, but you know what I'm going to tell you troubles me is Oops All Berries. Because I don't like marketing that suggests that they don't have control over what's happening in the factory.
Right. I never heard that. I never thought that angle. Never hear the end of it being older than my wife.
I'm sorry, because my husband is also Jonathan, and so maybe it's a Jonathan thing. I don't know.
Maybe 7 years older than his. So yeah. Doug tricks are for kids.
Kids,
Daniel.
of course. Kids.
Daniel.
Still not better than Captain Crunch with Crunch Berries. The only one that rivals it. There's only one cereal that rivals it from my youth, and there was Count Chocula, Blueberry, and Frankenberry, and then there was the one with the werewolf, and I can never remember the name of it, but that was my favorite.
They came out with it again last year because they did a revival of the originals, and I can't remember what it's called either. My thing is once a year.
Manny better knows.
I buy as much Count Chocula as I can buy. And that's like my little treat to myself when I want kids cereal. I love Count Chocula. And the second best is chocolate Lucky Charms, but you can hardly ever find them, which is good because I don't need that in my life, but I love them.
I never seen that.
It was called Fruit Brute.
Oh, Fruit Brute, yeah. I literally
there was also Yummy Mummy, which I've never
heard of Yummy Mummy. I do my Halloween cereal shopping like you wouldn't believe. I have newly opened boxes of Count Chocula, Blueberry, and Frankenberry in my pantry right now because I go and I buy more, even though I love Count Chocula more, I buy more Blueberry and Frankenberry because my kid and my husband like it better. Mm-hmm. And I keep it like that's like my little thing. It gets to be Halloween all year it's Halloween all year in my house anyway because we're spooky, but that's my thing. I need my year-long supply. But for me, a year-long supply is like I open a box, we get through it, and then like a few months later we open a second box. I'm not just like constantly looking down high sugar content kids cereal.
Like Manny, right? You're not Manny. We got it.
Oh, Manny's like how that guy doesn't have diabetes. I don't know.
When I was in my 20s and I was still in the Marine Corps, I could eat kid cereal every day and it was fine. But I am 37 years old and nobody is paying me to be fit, so I can't eat sugar cereal every day.
Okay, I do have it. I do have a cereal question for both of you. Fruity Pebbles or Cocoa Pebbles?
Cocoa Pebbles all the way.
Okay.
No, she's wrong. It's Fruity Pebbles. Just stop.
I like Fruity Pebbles.
Renee, stop.
But if I had to pick one.
It's the classic. Stop, Renee. Stop.
No, I'm with Renee. I'm sorry, but I'm a Greg on this because if I want chocolate stuff, I'll get like chocolate Rice Krispies or something like that. I can do that.
No, but they're not the same.
There are way better chocolate cereals, you're right. But here's the thing: when I want fruity cereal, I want Trix.
Oh,
not Fruit Loops.
No, I don't like
Pebbles and marshmallows. Jesus Christ! I don't want diabetes, Manny.
Manny, you need to get in contact with your sources.
I really want to. I want to see Manny's like dental bills for the year because holy shit!
Right.
Remind me why I don't eat like that every month because I would.
But imagine being Manny's daughter, man. That would be like the best house in the world.
It would be like going to Willy Wonka's factory every day, and it would just be cereal.
Manny's daughter is spoiled as fuck with cereal. Oh my god!
With this parenting is Pop-Tarts though, because I love Pop-Tarts. They're just so easy. And then if you want it to be easy but special, you put them in the toaster, and now all of a sudden it's easy and special. Like,
whoa! They need to go in a toaster every time. That is not a specialty thing. That is how they should be served.
I disagree, but also, you know what? Manny, that's not fair. You know,
that is definitely not fair.
Imagine that your dad is like, look at all these cereals I have.
Right. No. Now he's the worst dad ever. Right. Now he's the worst dad ever.
No, wait, because I'm gonna make it better. My stepdad's a wonderful man, but he's like got a sweet tooth that'll kill you, right? Like he would make Kool-Aid that came out like the concentrate that they put in the soda machine, right? What he used to do with Pop-Tarts, and so I say, like, I'll just eat a Pop-Tart. But if I want to make it special, I'll put it in the toaster. If I want to make it real special, I do it the way my stepdad did it. He put it in the toaster, and then he put butter over the frosting.
That is a very British thing to do.
He's not British. He grew up in Hollister, California. But it's amazing, but you feel a little bit bad every time you do it.
That is like either a British or a Southern thing to do is put butter on stuff like that.
I don't know. His mother is French Canadian, and I don't know where my step grandfather is from, but he grew up in California. His parents live on a golf course. Like they're the most whitest white people ever, but he got that sweet tooth from somewhere. I don't know where.
Right. And he does have 20 boxes in his garage. Manny, I don't.
Yeah, look, Zach knows what I'm talking about. It's donuts, though. I don't know, because I like a maple donut.
Ooh.
Yeah, I could see if you cop like if you cut it in half and putting that on.
You talking about like making a Pop-Tart and butter sandwich?
Yeah.
Oh.
Because that's too much. He just puts like a nice melty layer over the frosting, and it makes the frosting a little melty. You get a little butter flavor. It's like, don't do it every day. It'll kill you. Don't do it every day. But do it.
Y'all trying to kill Doug and I. We can't.
Yeah, we can't have that shit.
just hearing about it, y'all trying to kill us.
Easter's coming up. I want to give you another way to get diabetes. Okay.
Right.
And only do it once. Okay. Do it one time. Do not do it two. Definitely don't do it three. Roast.
What, Manny?
You roast a peep so that the sugar on the outside caramelizes, and then you make a s'more. But only eat one.
Okay.
You will die on the spot if you eat two.
Okay.
So what are you roasting again?
So you know.
No.
You roast it. The sugar caramelizes, You put that hot peep on some chocolate. You put it between. It's really good, but if you eat further on, you will immediately die.
Yeah, I will. Literally, I will literally die.
Okay, for Doug, you have half a one. Everybody else only have one.
No, I have none. I don't like peeps to start with, and then I don't.
No, but I don't like peeps either. It changes peep. Don't think of it as a peep. Think of it as a roasted marshmallow with caramel on the outside.
Let me give you. I have a lot of bad food takes. A lot. Greg will attest to this. I have a lot of bad food takes.
Not like not a bad
marshmallows are terrible.
Oh, that's a bad food take.
That is. They're just sweet nonsense. They stick everywhere. If you make a s'more, you have half of it on your fucking fingers, and like.
Doug, you're such a food downer. Oh my god.
If you take
oh my god, his old age is showing.
Marshmallow and they put it in their mouth. I don't understand those people, and I don't care to understand those people. It's with their business. But when you roast a marshmallow, it's a whole different thing.
Yes, but also, what the hell is Manny talking about here? Warming your milk in your cereal? What in the hell is going on?
He's making cereal soup. That's what he's doing. He's making
cereal soup.
And no, Manny!
Your milk sitting there.
Oh, Manny. Do not do that. Oh, my God.
Oh, man, Manny.
Cereal milk is not attractive to me, and I know a lot of people think, but I'm not a milk drinker.
Yeah, that's
things that Manny are saying are very upsetting to me.
Soggy cereal is the fucking worst, man.
By the way, Manny is still the only person on our show who's ever eaten cereal on our show and ate it by pouring fucking beer into the cereal that you with beer.
Facts. These are all facts.
What kind of beer?
It was a cereal beer of some sort. I can't remember. Greg, do you remember? Because I don't.
So Manny's
curious about.
I shaded cereal out.
Oh, okay. So he let. No. Okay, so this I can kind of get behind. He puts the cereal in the milk, sits it in the fridge for an hour. It gets all soggy. Then he strains it out. And then that milk he uses as creamer. Now, I can get behind that,
I'm going to tell you why no, Greg.
Why? Because I'm not eating that soggy cereal.
No. Because it's not just about the cereal. It's about how it flavors the milk. And when all of the flavor comes out of the cereal, that grainy flavor comes out of the cereal, too. And I don't want grainy flavor in my coffee.
Renee, stop. You're overthinking this shit.
I'm not overthinking it. I hate cereal milk. I put as little milk in my cereal as I can. First of all, Chris is right. Second of all, I put as little cereal in my milk as I can to still get like the texture I want because I hate cereal milk. So that is very
cereal milk is the best. Renee needs her mic cut like Chris Rock did last week. But anyway.
My cereal's name. Ouch, fucking
mouth. That milk and heat it up like hot chocolate. And then I want to go, and I want to do sexual chocolate. And then the mic down.
So,
me as a person who doesn't like milk.
You know what's going to happen, Doug? The next time we have Manny on and we're due to schedule Manny, we're not bullshitting. You're absolutely high on our list.
You're coming back on, dude.
Renee has to be on.
Yes.
We have Manny. Has to be. This is what I called in our private chat. We are now involved in a Renee tangent because because you know how, again, like Doug said, Renee gets on these tangents when she's on.
And I love
time, with Jeffrey and the nails, Doug and I are still recovering from
if
that.
Jeffrey's watching, I got more Death Valley nails, and these change color in the sun.
That's cool.
Just in case Jeffrey's watching, he needs to know.
Doug and I are still recovering in a good way, not a bad way, because recovery usually means bad, but recovery is generally good, because you're recovering. But we should get to something else. ladies first. So Renee, you're watching something.
Ladies first.
I am, and I've already. So Doug has already had to hear all about it. So I apologize. You get it again, Doug.
No, let it be known.
I started watching Human Resources, which is the spinoff of Big Mouth. And if you were like me, you probably thought Big Mouth is good and everything, but like spinoffs are always bad. Human Resources is so good, I would venture to say that it's better than Big Mouth.
Wow.
Yeah, I love Big Mouth, don't get me wrong. But like puberty is puberty, and that's kind of the only thing they deal with. And Human Resources takes all of the creatures you learned about in Big Mouth and gives them their own storylines, and then they deal with all different stages of life. So they deal with postpartum depression, they deal with getting married, they deal with Alzheimer's, they deal with losing a parent. Like, I was crying during a couple of episodes, like tears streaming down my face because there's so much heart in it. And I love the way they talk about these different creatures. And it actually relates back to that book I said I was reading about all the different parts, because like the creatures kind of represent these parts. You give your hormone monster and your love bug and there's an addiction angel and like I can't remember the name of an ambition gremlin, and all these different things that like are supposed to be on your team of personality that help you get through life. And some of them help you and some of them hinder you. And it's like dependent on their personality. It's just really fun. And A.D. Bryant is amazing. So if you liked Big Mouth, you will probably love Human Resources. If you haven't seen Big Mouth, you might not understand Human Resources. That's my disclaimer. But I loved it.
So you recommend Big Mouth before Human Resources?
Yeah, because you get an introduction into the creatures, and they play a much bigger role. Like in Big Mouth, the creatures interact with the character storylines, and in Human Resources, they have their own storylines and also interact with humans. So it's you kind of want to have an idea, I feel like.
Gotcha. What's up, Doug?
All right, so I watched, which is great for my attention span for binging stuff because it's only 3 episodes, and I'm a sucker for cult stuff. And Hillsong, A Megachurch Exposed is that. It is, so it's on here showing at the Amazon Prime. It's actually on Discovery Plus, and you can watch that. It's on Hulu. You watch everything. It's 3 episodes. It talks about this church, which is a giant church, which started in Australia, and it decided their aims. The guy who started the church was an old school fire and brimstone kind of preacher. And then he went to America and saw that you could capitalize on the money element of it, and decided that was the realm he wanted to go for. So he did that. Hillsong music is the music that churches buy. That's how they made their money. They created original music. So they decided we can make our own music. And so they invested heavily in making music, and they made fucking billions of dollars on that. And then they expanded all over the globe through the United States. As it with every cult, everything is fucking nuts. If you watch the first episode is about Carl Lentz, who is the major pastor in New York, who was on The View and all these things. He was like the hip, hot, young guy pastor who was friends with Justin Bieber, who was part of their church, and Chris Pratt was part of their church, except they're very anti-LGBTQ, and like there's a lot of shit that goes on. And Carl Lentz left the church because he was fucking multiple women, and it's a really interesting thing. I will give you a trigger warning. The 3rd episode is about the founder of the church, whose son runs it now, but the founder of the church was a pedophile. So if that is a thing you cannot handle, do not watch the 3rd episode.
Also a general trigger content warning for anybody who deals with religious trauma, like know where your limits are.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Religious trauma, and I'm super into like cult documentaries and stuff, but like I gotta be judicious sometimes.
Yeah, and the idea of being really folks who've gone through religious trauma, which is really, really more prevalent than people realize. And if that's something you've gone through, then maybe that's not a thing for you. Like my wife has gone through that. When I watch something like this, and I'm like, maybe not the thing for you to watch. Stay away from that.
I'm totally gonna watch it. I'm not saying like everybody who has religious trauma can't handle anything.
No, I don't mean that either.
But I just I want to throw that out because you gave the trigger warning about pedophilia, which is important. But I actually had a slip up with somebody recently where I started talking about cults, and then if an hour later they were like, actually, I grew up in a cult, and I was like, oh crap! I totally entered that room like I'm the only person in the world who's ever had religious trauma and didn't think about what I was saying. So that's a lesson I had to learn recently. So I wanted to throw it out there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but that's the thing is we all learn people's background sometimes through unconventional ways, and that's one of them. Is just there are a lot of people who deal with religious trauma way more than people think. They think the religion is just this altruistic, really nice thing, and for some people, it's very much not. And that doesn't mean it's bad for a lot of people. They're the people that are duped through this. I feel terrible for because they were looking for a place to belong, a place that made them feel whole, and they found it, and then they realized it was for shit and it was false.
Yes,
that is what I feel bad for. If you find something that makes you feel good and it doesn't harm other people, awesome. But that thing was not that. So
cults rely on a specific type of manipulation, and almost all of them have so many things in common that it's insane. You wouldn't believe how much these cults have in common if it's a UFO cult versus a Christian cult versus whatever, right? They have so many things in common. And I think the struggle there is when you learn about them, you like to sit back and be like, I would never fall for that. But you've probably fallen for similar things on a much smaller level in your life, whether it's a guy you like that manipulated you, or a club you were in high school, or whatever.
A former president.
But yeah.
Sorry, Adam.
So I think it's a challenge, but it's important to recognize people in cults are victims. Now, people who rise through the ranks and are the right-hand man to the cult leader, maybe not, but maybe it depends, right? So it is complex, but I do think people who are involved in cults are victims in the same way that you'd be a victim if you were in an abusive interpersonal relationship, because it is just an abusive relationship where you're very manipulated, and groupthink is really heavily enforced in a way that you wouldn't necessarily be aware of from the inside. You're aware of it from the outside. It's easy, but anyway.
But what I think is interesting about this particular series is that it mimics a lot of the Nexium thing. I don't know if you saw that, Renee, where it's very much, it starts out and they're just kind of talking about things that make a lot of sense. Always. And then they bring you in, and then it just turns into this misogynistic piece of shit that just, hey, women, you need to shut the fuck up and do this. And the guys, it almost always turns into that. And it almost always turns into that, specifically with religious stuff. And again, if you're religious, please don't take this as me saying I don't think you should have a space. I think you should. But there's parts of it that really fucking sucks and really harms other people. That doesn't mean you can't be religious and be happy where you are. It's just as long as it's not harming other people, it's not harming yourself, I think it's great.
Right. And I think there's also sects and different denominations that do a really good job of making sure to tell the people that follow them that it's about you. It's not about your neighbor. It's not about the people that go to your kid's school. It's not about the way you vote. It's about you. And that's a very different approach than a lot of religions, and especially cults that are it's about everybody. And it's your job to tell everybody what it's about. And that's very different.
Amen. And I'm going to get to what I've been watching. I've been all encompassed in this Ozark. I just can't stop watching it. Since I put it on, I cannot stop watching it. I literally probably watched 5 shows in the last, maybe 6 in the last 24 hours, Doug. I am just completely in. But the one thing I do want to make a comment that I haven't made before about it is that this show has if you like women actors or actresses and you like women actresses that just kick ass, this show is full of them. The main 3 female actresses in season 2 and 3, they're just phenomenal at what they do, and they're just fantastic. The men actors are good. Don't get me wrong. Jason Bateman is the lead. He's great, but his character really doesn't evolve. During the show, he's pretty much the same guy he was episode 1 that he is now, and I'm almost in season 4. You know how sometimes good stories don't need, like the main lead to ever really change his, what he's doing or what she's doing. But you need those cast members to be evolving. Like for me, every good story has great character development. This show has great character development, but it's specifically the women, and they just kick ass. So if you like women leads and women kicking ass and acting and all that all day long, on top of a crazy plot that really feels realistic on some levels. Of course, it's not like almost any fiction, but it really feels realistic, and it really, really makes you feel tense and really gets all those feels. The mood lighting is fantastic. The way that they use the audio is fantastic. You can tell something's bad by the ominous music. I love shit like that. Renee, I'm a sucker for that bullshit.
Me too.
I'm such a sucker for it. And this show has it all day long. So
my kids like to watch things with closed captions, and it's made me really upset for the deaf community because they'll be like, ominous music plays.
Yes.
Music plays. And I'm like, you are not even attempting to communicate what's going on.
Right.
Hey, so can I make it?
It's that deep bass that like hits your body. It's like boom, boom. And if you're in a room, one of our TVs has a nice, home theater system. I don't even watch Ozark on that TV. I should. But anyway, one of those ones where it hits you. Yeah, one of those, Renee, where it hits you and you're like, you feel that bass.
Yeah, in your tummy.
Yeah, and it's like, you're like, they're foreshadowing something bad is about to happen. And then you almost like brace. It's great. I love it. Great cinema. It's great. It's a fantastic show. Y'all need to check it out. What's up, Doug?
No, I was just going to say, as a partially deaf person, I had to watch almost everything with these on and with subtitles. And
I love the subtitles. I'm sorry. I know they annoy some people. I fucking love them. Especially on a show like Ozark, where the two main people, they have these arguments and they speak so fast. Like, like Renee, like you and your husband have been together for a long ass time. So y'all can right. So y'all and Doug and Joe too. So some of those conversations can be so quick because y'all used to the way you talk.
There's a shorthand to talk. There's a shorthand to it, right?
Right. And they got that in Ozark, and they do that like really fast. So their arguments are like blah, 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 blah. And sometimes even with the damn captions, I can't follow along what they're arguing about.
Captions are not correct either.
Sometimes the captions aren't correct.
It's starting to irritate me. But anyway.
sometimes I have to rewind and really read the comments to see exactly what the dialogue is. But they have that. They even have that aspect down of two people who've been together forever can have these like quick conversations. Right. And the best part about it, one of the funniest things about Ozark is they have these fights, and then the fight always ends with him just walking out. Like he'll just leave the room and like.
Oh, that man.
Right, but Renee, I know you've seen some of them. Right. He's just like, well, I just feel like he's just like, look, I said what I said. I'm not going to get any further with this, so I'm out. Like, and that's how he does. Like, it's just funny though. Their style of arguing, it's just funny. So
I feel angry in my body right now after you said that.
Right, but Renee, that's his way of like not doing any more damage. You know what I mean?
He's a super nice guy. I get it. I haven't seen season 4, but yeah.
Right, but like that's I see it as it used to annoy me, but I also see it as his way to like stop the damage. Like if I say because sometimes these arguments with your spouse, you just need to get your point across sometimes and just get out of there because it could deteriorate fat. You know what I mean? It could go the wrong way.
So many reasons, obviously, in that show, but they also need couples therapy of like setting boundaries.
Oh, horrible!
Let's come back to this, or
well, I don't want to ruin it for you, but they eventually get there. But anyway.
Oh, okay. I mean, I remember that first episode. I was like,
but in Ozark fashion, it's such a fucking mess. So it's a mess. It's not cut and dry at all.
You'd be happy it's a mess. If they were right, your heart would be breaking. But it's fine.
Right, for sure, exactly. And that's another show, Doug, too. That like, there's no one I'm rooting for, and I find that hard. You always want to root for someone. You always want to kind of gravitate or grab onto a character, and this show makes it extremely impossible, if not at all. And
I
people
love
have their favorites, but like,
because I do really like the show. But the first time I saw it, I was going through kind of a bad time. My grandmother was literally on her deathbed. There was like other stuff going on, and the first episode I watched, I was like, I can't watch this show, even though it's directly up my alley. Like I love
right,
crime, I love like, but I was like, it's just too dark.
right.
And people who know me, if they heard me say that, they'd be like,
What?
okay,
Ozark's pretty
like,
fucking
actually, not
dark.
a lot going
It
on.
really is. It really is. And the way they set the mood too, Doug, like they have it like they shoot it with some kind of camera, because I read it on Wikipedia, that like has these blue tones to it. And it's just it's all dark. You know how I haven't seen it, but you know how the Batman looks? It's not that dark, because you know how the Batman is, the whole thing looks like it's dark. You almost squint to see the Batman half the time in the previews.
Mm-hmm.
Ozark shot in that way, where it's dark, and you have to like almost like sometimes rewind and see, like sometimes you see people in the background looking, but they're not, like you have to look for it's just fantastic. Anyway, Renee, you have something to talk about.
Oh yeah, real quick. So I'm on the board for an amazing nonprofit called Milltree, and our website is being remodeled, redesigned right now. So you'd want to find us, I guess, on Facebook or Instagram. But what we do is we connect veterans with their own community that they're living in through art, like visual arts, through writing, through performance art, like you name it, songwriting, whatever it may be, dialogue and shared projects. And I am actually going to be doing a reading for one of our annual fundraisers called Live from Joshua Tree. And if you go to livefromjoshuatree.com, you can actually buy a discounted ticket to stream it live if you can't be here in person. And we're still kind of aware that COVID is not totally gone. So we're actually very limited seating, but unlimited streaming. And not only will you get to see me and a lot of amazing desert writers tell desert stories, you will get to help us fund these amazing projects that we're doing that are really making a difference for veterans. And if you've read any of my writing, if you're familiar with me at all, this is the very first time anybody in the world is ever going to hear me tell a true story, because I don't do that, about myself anyway. And it's I think kind of uplifting and moving and touching, and that's also not something I do very often. So it'll be fun. So if you check out livefromjoshuatree.com, you'll find out more about it, and that is happening on the 23rd of April. So yeah, I would just love it if people wanted to check it out and see if they were interested in streaming it, and you know, their ticket costs will go to an amazing cause that I'm very passionate about.
And what is your website?
My website is reneeasherpickup.com. And yes, and I will add that to the events, and I'll add it to my Instagram, Renee A Pickup. I'll add it to my Instagram events, which is like mostly right now when I come on Brothers and Booze, I put a little thing in my event story. Yeah, so it's just really exciting stuff. And I'm on the board because when I moved back to the area and I didn't have a lot of connections and it was COVID, like they fulfilled their mission with me. So when they asked me to do more, I was like, all right, well, I know the thing you do works, so I will do what I can. And Live from Joshua Tree is like a really cool thing. And the people who are on the roster are really amazing writers. And it'll be really great to see them do. Not all of them are memoirists or spoken word artists either. Like a lot of them are crime fiction writers or work in their own genre or poets. And everybody's doing this kind of memoir spoken word approach to experiences they have had in the desert. Some of them are this desert, Joshua Tree. Some of them are other deserts. I haven't got to read anybody else's stuff, so I can't speak to what they're going to read, but it could be any desert. And so there's a lot of ways it could go. And I know that mine is something I have never done before, but the organizer of the show likes it. So fingers crossed it's as good as she thinks it is, because I'm nervous because I've never done it before, but it made my husband cry. So.
Oh, well, that's a good sign.
And you got out of your box. That's great.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, good. Y'all head over to reneeasherpickup.com right there. And you can find Renee on all social media. but mostly I'm sure Facebook and Instagram, right?
Facebook and Instagram are my mains. Like I hardly ever check in on Twitter, and I watch TikTok, but I don't TikTok because I'm old.
Oh, same. I watch TikTok for like just fucking nonsense.
Every minute of his life, damn it.
No, that's bullshit. You know when I watch? I watch at nights when I'm not doing shit. That's the only time I watch.
And in the morning when you and Jill have coffee, you said it earlier. Don't lie. Don't lie.
No, I will tell you the thing is like Jill does that more than I do, and that's okay.
Oh, here comes.
No, it's okay. I tend to be on Twitter like a fucking ninny and do that shit in the morning. Like
I just can't do Twitter.
Here's the thing. I can do Twitter because it's bite-sized, compartmentalized nonsense.
I was an early adopter of Twitter, and I loved it. And then writer Twitter happened. And I was like, maybe I don't need Twitter in my life.
You're probably smarter than I am.
and me too, right? I'm all entwined in Twitter. But what I'm also entwined is... It's time for review, Renee. What did you have to sip while we were talking sex and cereal and crazy shows like Ozark?
So I was drinking the Lost Horse, like I said, with the Gosling's ginger beer, which if you're going to have ginger beer, it's Gosling's or Bundaberg. Like nothing else really exists. Like it's good stuff. This was really good. I just bought it on a whim because it was local, and I had rewards at the bottle shop, so my wine was free. Might as well buy some whiskey.
Buy local.
Yeah, and definitely, if you got a reward, then you use it, right?
Yeah.
And I got was great.
Oh yeah.
What it was called. But yeah, it's really smooth. This is a blended whiskey, so it's not like it doesn't. It's not a rye or a bourbon or whatever. It's just blended. Maybe, normally I would like to know, like I would like it to be a bourbon or a rye, and that's how I would decide how to mix it. But it went down smooth. It tasted great. It mixed wonderful with ginger beer, which is my favorite thing to mix whiskey with if I'm not going to like go through the trouble of making an old fashioned. So I definitely recommend it. I don't know how available it is. It's from the Joshua Tree Distilling Co., which we also have Joshua Tree Brewery, but I think they're two different companies. So if you're interested in checking it out, you should check it out. And I keep telling Doug and Greg they have to come visit me. So if you come visit me, we'll drink some Joshua Tree whiskey and Joshua Tree.
Yes. Absolutely. Doug, what did you have tonight?
Okay, so I'm gonna start with the thing that, and I'm gonna say least favorite. That's not a great way to say it, but I started with the Survival Blonde, which was a good blonde. It's just a little weedy for me. Decent, probably better when it's warm. It's still, we just went into a little bit of a cold spat. We have one day where it was warm. So when it's cold and I get cold like a motherfucker, which is why I'm wearing a freaking long sleeve shirt because I'm on a million blood thinners. So I am not great with that. So I had the Frank's Coffee Truck, which is a porter that was 7.1.
Dry porter.
My wife. Yeah, dry porter. Not so much dry. I should have found it more sweet. It was good. Just okay. So my favorite was the Framing Hammer, French Toast Framing Hammer, which was a maple barrel aged stout. I drank all that really fast, which is why I'm tipsy right now. So great.
Yeah, I had, I think, 2 doubles of the whiskey. So if I'm not making sense, I'm sorry.
Oh, that part of our show is not making sense. So this is great.
Yeah. That's why I always fit in.
Greg, what did you have? You had
real quick. I had I had a few of these actually. This Interruption Flamingo beer. It's a collaboration between Vintage and our local soccer pro team. So yeah, it was good. Little hoppy pale ale, a little bit big on the hops, but not too much that Doug would be offended. So then, also before we leave, I sometimes look. I'm speaking to the audience, not y'all. Sometimes I feel very intimidated about my English when I have these two around, these writers who are all like, right, and editors. I just feel inferior. So I want to say I would be remiss, or we would be remiss. Does that sound right? I'm not sure. Help me out in the comments, because sometimes I feel writer shame. It's not on. They don't do it. I just feel that inferiority complex when I'm around them.
If I were going to judge you, I wouldn't be judging you after 4 shots of whiskey. Let's be clear about that.
Oh, this is why we do the booze on the show. I got it. No, but we will be remiss if I didn't give y'all a chance to talk about Trans Visibility Day, which I believe was yesterday. So if y'all want to make a comment about that before we exit, I feel that that's appropriate given who I'm on the panel with.
Renee, do you want to start? I'll go next.
Sure.
If you want.
I actually, I feel a little bit bad about it. I did not really acknowledge it on my social media.
Neither did I.
I mentioned earlier, like I went back to school. I've been super busy, but when I saw everybody, when I was on social media today, I saw everybody posting, like I did feel kind of bad about it, because I do think it's so important. I have a lot of people in my life who are in various stages of transition, and I think my favorite quote about it is actually from Twin Peaks. David Lynch, the character he plays, Gordon Cole, speaks to, and I wouldn't say this is a great representation of trans people, but what he says is great. He's speaking to the David Duchovny character who's trans on the show, and he says, "And when you became Denise, I told your colleagues, those clown comics, fix your hearts or die." And that's how I feel about it. If you don't love people based on what their gender is and what you think it should be, you can fix your heart or die, because I don't think it's okay or right that we have so many trans people whose lives are literally at risk, either from suicide or from actual homicide, because people are just so unwilling to, I guess what I would say, to not give a fuck about what other people are doing or what makes other people feel whole. Like whoever you are as a whole person, if you are that and it's your true self, I am here to support you, because I think the most important thing that we can do as humans is to like fully embrace our true selves and express it in the ways that make us feel good, as long as it's not hurting other people. And I can guarantee you that somebody else being trans does not hurt you, so get over it.
Amen. Doug?
How do you capitalize on that? But yes, you're correct. So, we have a trans child, and here's the thing. They're being themselves. It doesn't harm you. It doesn't harm anybody else. It doesn't do anything to make you feel like you're not more valid. Our society is built on very cis heteronormative ideals. Very, very much. And those folks are just trying to be happy and be themselves. That's literally it. That is literally it. They're not trying to harm you. They're not trying to take away your way of life. They're not trying to change your kids, which is a fucking ridiculous argument, which makes me want to punch Ron DeSantis in the face about 100 times, because fuck the guy. But it's not just him. There's a million trans bills that are going through various states to try to make them illegal to be who they are. Here's the thing. If you're trans and you don't have somebody who supports you, I'm here to support you. I'm here. You can talk to me any goddamn time. I don't care where you're from. And if you're really fucking stuck, my wife and I will help you in whatever way we can. It doesn't matter what that is. If we can, and I'm going to say in the measure of, and unfortunately, because we live in a fucking capitalist society, it has to be what we can afford. We have 4 kids, so we also have to be really mindful of that. But we also want to help people who just feel like they can't live as they are. And if you are against people just being themselves, then fuck off. I don't have time for you. I don't.
Somebody's political opinion isn't more important than somebody else's life, and that is what trans issues come down to.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right. Thank you, Renee, for joining us.
Yes.
I always have a great time.
Fantastic as usual, and thank you for bringing the female perspective to this show when you do. And thank you for bringing the female perspective and view to our conversation today. Thank you for bringing your Renee tangents. We love them.
I love them.
we can't do without them. So we will have these. We will see you soon. We will be booking you with Manny. Can't wait to have that conversation.
That would be awesome.
Yes. Any last comments before we go?
No, just I'm always so pleased to come, and you guys have the best listeners / viewers and the best guests, and I'm just so honored that you like me and you let me go off on weird tangents. And I'm here anytime that you need someone to fill this third spot. So thank you again.
We like you. We really, really like you.
Yes. And it's fantastic having you around. So we will see you soon. One last thing I wanted to throw in here, though. I don't know how the timing may not be the greatest, but yeah. But right, y'all, when you see it, y'all gonna know what I'm saying. But so this show, shut up, both y'all. No, they're Welcome to Earth is a great series. If you could stand dealing with Will Smith at the point, maybe you need to take some time off. I personally do, actually, because he's annoying me.
Is space involved?
But space is actually what he does is he travels to different parts of the Earth, and each show is a segment of like either your vision, hearing, so sound. We were talking about sound before, Renee, and I think the second episode of that 6-episode series is about sound. And basically, he takes a blind guy to a volcano, and the blind guy talks about an erupting volcano, and he talks about the sound and how he can visualize sound and how sound is important. And if we're really as a people, we are really tuned in more to our eyes than we are sound, and listening and being part of our environment is sound, and we take that for granted with our eyes. So he brings a blind guy with him who used to be able to see, but he had some degenerate eye thing that he lost his sight, I believe, when he was young. Long story short, it really gets into sound and how that's important, and that's kind of what we were talking about Ozark. We got off on a tangent after Ozark, but I wanted to mention if y'all can stand Will Smith at the moment, that is a fun thing. Our family watches it. We still have to watch the end, but the sound show is really.
Can
really
I tell
cool.
you why I asked if space was involved real quick?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so because you remember my initial reaction to the Will Smith Chris Rock thing, right? And I gave a brief to your greater audience. But I made a comment about it to a friend. Ain't that a slap in the face? I love it. I made a comment to a friend about it. I was like, I don't know. Like, my main takeaway is like, Will Smith is kind of cool again. And they reminded me Will Smith is a Scientologist. And so I just always want to keep that in mind when people who are involved in organizations that big, that are that harmful, aware, like, is there a connection, right? So as a writer, there is an actual award that Scientology, it's called something else, and I can't remember right now because I've had 4 shots of whiskey. I apologize. But Scientology funds it, and they give this award, and young writers or new writers are like so excited to get an award, and they go to this big banquet, and they get to put like a thing on their book, and it's so great. And then they go around and they tell everybody, I don't know what everybody's big problem with Scientology is. They didn't try to recruit me. And that's the whole point of it, right? Is they want people to go tell that story. So I don't have anything again, like I said earlier, people who are in cults are victims. And I think like probably a lot of the celebrities don't fully understand the ways that they're being used. But if he were to do a space show, I'd be like, probably not gonna watch that. Just because.
Right. So again, there was a disclaimer there, and like Daniel said, ain't that a slap to the face? So with that being said, we are our next. I had a snafu with our promos, so we'll have our promos next week. We don't have one for tonight, but next week We're going to talk to my friend John from Twitter. He is a rep for one of Doug's favorite breweries.
Yeah.
Yes. So Weyerbacher out of
Yeah.
Easton, Pennsylvania. One of Doug's favorite breweries.
Man.
Really fantastic brewery. They make big ass beers, Renee.
Yes. Like high gravity shit.
And they're really, really good. So and they got bought out, and there's been a whole bunch of shit going on with them.
Yeah, a lot of shit going on with them.
It's gonna be nice to see them. But until then, catch me on Thursday for the beer chat with Afro Beer Chick and Carla Main Beer Babe. We talked about beer and food last week. It's there on my timeline if you want to catch the replay. Always available to do that. And yes, Weyerbacher, hell yes. Yes, absolutely. And with that being said, we'll see y'all guys next week. Thank you, Renee, again.
Thanks, Renee.
Thanks for having me.
Susanna. Thanks again to Suzannah Weiss. So, yeah.
Yes, she was so awesome.
Absolutely. Cheers.